So let's just get started. Right. So welcome everyone again. So we have with us Rosamund Payne from the Clifton Children's House. She's originally trained as a nurse, but later became interested in Montessori education when her first child attended the Montessori nursery in 1978 in Clifton. After qualifying as a Montessori teacher, she opened the Clifton Children's House in 1989 in Bristol, and for the last 20 years the school has been the family for her. Wonderful. In 2007 she was awarded the Montessorian of the Year for her involvement in training preschool teachers in Nicaragua, and she has had the privilege of working with children for the last 30 years and have witnessed firsthand the positive aspects of this method of education. So,
yes, thank you. Are there any teachers here? Not early years. Early years? No. No. Good. I thought I'd better just make that first. Yes, I've had a Montessori preschool in my house for the last 20 years. It's in the basement, and they use our kitchen as well. We have 25 children coming every morning, and I'm going to retire at the end of this term, so this is the last time I should be talking about Montessori. The title is Self-Regulation in a Montessori Setting, and the Montessori motto is help me to do it by myself, which I felt was what agency is all about. This is the first time I've done a PowerPoint presentation. We've had lots of problems, but let's see if it's going to work. So today's session, first of all, what is the method? Second, a few examples of agency in our school. Then how do we get to that point? What are the general practices that we use to encourage independence? And some of these specific Montessori activities, which I brought some of them here. We can have a discussion and questions, and then I'd like you just to come and handle the materials as I've brought them for you to see. So first of all, that is Montessori. She is Montessori. Does anyone know a lot about her? No, that's good. Except for you who went to a Montessori school.
I don't know that much about Maria, though.
Oh, right, okay. Right, well, she was born in 1870 in Italy. She was the first woman to qualify as a medical doctor. And she became interested in education when she was working as a doctor with children with special needs. She devised special materials to help them to learn through movement and systematic stimulation through the senses. So these children with special needs responded so well that they overtook the children in mainstream education and passed the exam. So she thought, well, some of her ideas could apply to all children. So she went back to university to study anthropology, psychology, and educational philosophy. And she was influenced by people of the time, such as Froebel and Rousseau and Pestalozzi. The Pestalozzi system was used at a school in Switzerland attended by Albert Einstein. And he said about it, it made me clearly recognize how much superior an education based on responsibility is to one relying on outward authority, which is what Montessori is very much about. In 1907, she was asked to organize an infant school in a deprived area in Rome for 3 to 6 year old children with illiterate parents. She was given a room. In the room she put tables and chairs, and there was a cupboard with some of the materials that she'd been devising for her special needs children. And she used this classroom as a laboratory to observe the children to see what they did. And there was a woman in charge who was just the caretaker's daughter. She wasn't a teacher. And to start with, all the material was kept in a cupboard. And one morning she came in and they'd forgotten to lock the cupboard, and the children had got out materials and were starting to use them, totally absorbed in what they were doing. So thereupon she thought, well, in that case we don't need to lock the things away, we'll have them out on shelves, which is what she did. And she watched to see the things that they liked to choose and the things that they didn't choose, she took out. So the whole time she was observing them like a scientist. And it soon became clear that all children were capable of achieving and becoming independent learners when taught by her method. So international fame followed. Lots of people came to see these children. She travelled extensively, delivering lectures and training and writing books. During the Second World War, she was in India because of the fascist regime in Italy. And she also went to the United States, and she died in Holland in 1952. Please feel free to stop me at any moment and ask questions, because I don't want to rattle on when I'm not meant to be doing a talk. So the method, the Montessori method, she said, the child is a truly miraculous being, and this must be felt by the educator. And fundamental to her approach is the belief that the child's early years are the time when they have the greatest capacity to learn and the greatest appetite for knowledge. She came to realise that children were capable of extraordinary independence and developmental growth if they're allowed to work freely and without constant interference from an adult. So the method evolved from her observations of children at different stages of development and from different cultures, and she observed common characteristics. She observed that all children have absorbent minds, and she wrote a book called The Absorbent Mind. Their minds are like sponges, they absorb a lot of information and what's going on around them. And therefore, the child's experience could be enriched by a classroom that demonstrated basic educational information, such as some of these things I thought today. She also observed that children go through sensitive periods, certain periods of a particular sensitivity that kept occurring in children when a child could learn the activity he was focused on at a particularly intense rate, and that such learning appeared to come very easily. And she defined sensitive periods, which included a sensitive period for order. Children like consistency, they like to know where they are. A sensitive period for the acquisition of language, which they, all children soak up their mother tongue very easily. A sensitive period for the social aspects of life, and that's when children become very intensely interested in other children, and when they want to go to nursery school, probably. And an unusual one, a sensitive period for small objects. And we have examples of this sensitive period every week in my school, because a child will be looking all over the floor and just pick up and say, look what I found, and it's one staple. Now, they're very excited by that. They also love wood lice and things of that nature. And there's a sensitive period for learning through the senses. So what makes the Montessori method different, and what makes it work so well, is that it's based on a deep understanding of how children learn, through choosing, trying, and doing themselves. And when allied to specially developed materials, in a prepared environment, with close observation and guidance of a Montessori teacher, this leads to an enormously powerful, confidence-building approach to learning. So, the core of the method is the belief that children want to learn. And in order to learn, they need to concentrate. Children develop concentration by fixing their attention on the task they're performing with their hands. The hand is the chief teacher of the child, and the child learns by doing. He also needs freedom to choose what he wants to do, and the teacher must provide interesting activities for him to choose within a structured environment. If everyone did exactly as they wanted, it could be chaos. Freedom is limited by the rights of the other children and also the environment. Through choosing, the child develops self-discipline and the ability to control his own will, which is self-regulation. Being able to regulate your actions and emotions is vital for playing an active role in your own learning. So the teacher prepares the classroom with materials that the child can manipulate and that encourage independence. She puts the child in touch with the materials, and the child learns from the materials. The teacher watches for signs of concentration and then makes sure the child isn't disturbed by the others. Children are natural learners, and when allowed to follow their innate needs, self-confidence and happiness increase. So she referred to her method as an aid to life. Montessori schools recognise that the most valuable impulse towards learning is the self-motivation of the child. He needs to be active in his own learning. In traditional schools, children are seen to be in need probably of more active instruction and control from the adults. I can test that one. So, how does this relate to agency? Montessori children are encouraged to be active agents in their own learning by choosing their own activities in a structured environment. And agency develops because there is respect for each child's capabilities. In our school, children learn skills in order to be independent learners. And if this is going to work, I've got some examples.
Yes.
Yes, certainly.
Did you press the arrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, sadly, the pictures that we put into the PowerPoint are very slow motion. But we've got some other ones as well, which I'll have to fiddle with. But here is a child peeling and chopping a carrot. And this is a very sharp knife. So, she drops it first. But she picks it up. She's just 4. There's quite a lot of chat that goes on in the room. What they talk about is fascinating. So she's showing concentration, independence, and interest in her activity. And so are the other children in the background. Yes, the sound finishes before the picture, but you can see that she you need to have a lot of force to chop a carrot, so this is a very good exercise in how much force you need. And not chopping off your own fingers.
So can I just say something?
Certainly, yes, please.
When my son was 1.5, my mum had him chopping up a carrot and with an apron on and a sharp knife, and I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And she made the point that, you know, provided the child's not distracted, they're quite safe. So this is really interesting to me because the situation is, and the habit in the room is that a child doesn't get distracted.
That's right.
So they are already quite safe.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, because she's a kind of big girl compared to how old my son was.
Yes,
precisely
yes,
the
I
same.
wouldn't do it for a 2-year-old,
Yeah.
probably.
Maybe one to, you know,
A banana.
1 to 1.
I'd start with a banana, and yes.
Whereas if you, I think if possibly if you did this in a you know, more conventional, I don't know if to say it's more conventional nursery setting or another kind of nursery.
Yes, it
You
would
might
be dangerous.
a hell of a lot more worried because of the level of distraction that is.
That's right. It's because these children have been trained, and they're all sitting down doing their own thing, as you'll see in the other ones. You need the right environment, basically.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. There was another one of her, but here she is really voicing it. But I think we'll move on because we've seen carrot chopping now. Now here is another child. This is what we call our practical life exercises, and she's pouring from quite a large flask, which is heavy, into this cylinder, and this requires a lot of concentration and hand-eye coordination. And she's not being disturbed by the others. They understand that straight away. And if they are disturbed, then the teacher in the room would make sure that she wasn't. That's the role of the teacher. As it's in slow motion, it takes a long time. But she stops before the top, and that's the self-control.
How old is she?
She's just 4, too. Yeah. And then the tongue out always means concentration. And it's not easy, because you've got to move it backwards a bit.
But she's aware of the music.
I'm afraid they're aware of the film, which is a pity, because usually they're not looking up to see who's doing filming.
But I think she's more aware of the person behind the camera, because she's kind of
Yes, she
sharing how
is.
happy she is.
She is,
That
yeah,
she
she
made
is.
it.
Yeah, she is, yeah.
So it's like she's sharing, like, you know, I can do this.
She's very proud of herself.
Yeah.
She does it again when she's not focusing quite so well and she spills some, but that's absolutely fine because then she mops it up with a sponge. And so in that way we don't need to correct them at all. It's all there for them. But I won't go on this, it's a bit slow this, but she does fill it. Now there's one more clip which I've just got to be around to get from.
Excuse me, in the first clip,
Yes.
you say that adults don't need to monitor the children. She actually, the girl cutting the carrot, she actually got advice from friends.
Yes.
who's sitting
Oh
next
yes,
to
they
her.
do interact with each
Yes.
other all the time and they're watching
So
each
that,
other.
that would be like pure learning.
Yes, they learn from each other
Yes.
more than they probably learn from us.
Yes.
Now I'm
That's
hoping that
Vygotsky.
this one, if it works, is a child showing a lot of perseverance with quite a difficult puzzle. She's just 4 as well. And this puzzle is a magnetic map of Europe. And it requires a lot of pushing to get the piece. Also, they've got to recognise the shape underneath. But there's a lot of other things going on in the room at the same time, but she's totally involved in her own activity. If you don't get them exactly in the right place, they won't go in. So sometimes 2 children will do this activity together and help each other, but she's chosen to do it on her own. We have to slow right down to the child's pace because everything's done at their pace. And this one isn't in slow motion. So she got it in there. Right, so... right, so those are just a few examples of showing concentration and interest and focus and perseverance. And now... So, how do we get to this point in our school? So there are certain general practices that are done in Montessori schools, and the first one is the structure of the session. So children are encouraged to come in on their own, and then you can see there they've got their hangers with their names on, so they recognise their name straight away without any adult help. And then they take it with their bag into my kitchen, and then they change them into indoor shoes because we feel that this is more hygienic because we're going to be sitting on the floor a lot of the time. And also it's very good practice for dressing and undressing. So when they've changed their shoes, they come hang their bag up on those pegs again, and then they come downstairs because the school's in the basement, and they choose what they're going to do. But first of all, they have to self-register. I think this is done probably in quite a lot of nursery schools actually, but I'll just show you how we do it. So then, oh, sorry. Wrong one.
In the middle.
Yep. Okay, so he's just put his name up, and he comes with his sister, who's just 2, 2.5, and she puts her name up, The other children are already busy, and she always goes to the snack table first. So she's rushing in there, they're all busy doing their own work, and here she is, and she's going straight to get a snack, because the snack table is free for them to use throughout the morning. And so does her brother. So that's self-registration. Then they choose their own activities for the next 2.5 hours. Montessori recommended a 3-hour, uninterrupted by timetabled events work time, as she called it. And during the work cycle, the children engages with a range of activities. It could be looking at books, doing puzzles, Montessori materials, playing with a friend, painting, construction work, craft work, blocks, having a snack, playing outside, and everything is guided by the child's own rhythm. And now I've got to get back to this. Right. So, there's an uninterrupted work time and freedom of choice. So this is just to give this is slow motion again. There's that child again, meaning they're all doing their own activity, they've chosen it from the shelf, and they're doing it for as long as they like. So these children are doing polishing, which is quite a typical Montessori practical life exercise, and so is that one. And then this little girl is doing role play with animals in the sand. So we do have imaginative play as well, because that's always one of the criticisms of Montessori. So we change the whatever's in the sand every week. Right. And then they get their work away when they've done it. And here she is again. She's going to be looking on the shelf to see what she wants to do next. And sometimes it takes them a long time to decide what they want to do. And she is choosing, she's having a good look in the baskets, and she's going to choose opening tins and lids, opening tins on, tops on tins, which is good for their coordination. But because it's in slow motion, it's taking twice as long.
Do they request any help in planning, making deciding?
They can decide. If they don't know how to do it, they ask us to show them. And if we see that they haven't understood, then and that they need help, if we see they take something that they might not know how to use, we say, can we show you that?
How many options do they have?
How many
Options.
Well, they can choose anything that's in the room or in the other room.
So that like for you, that would be an issue to discuss with yourself whether you want to present more than a number of alternatives. It's like not overflooding the.
Yes, you can overstimulate. Is that what you mean? Yes, you can have too much. Yeah.
You can have
too much. Yeah.
But if you have too much, won't be like imposing constraints on the choice, because as an adult.
Yes, that's right. Well, that's where the control comes. That's where the structure comes, by what you put into the environment, what you want them to choose.
Okay.
So there's a wide range, and all the time we're looking to see what the interests of the children are, and then we would change things according to their interests.
So that if you would have a child with special needs,
yes,
then you would change. Would you change your whole environment to suit them?
No, not necessarily. No. When we have the younger children, which we have in the afternoon, we take out the dangerous things, but otherwise they're free to choose whatever they like.
And you believe that there is not too much choosing?
No. You mean too many things?
Too many things, too many options. Problems of. No, I do want to hear.
Well, when you start a Montessori class, you start with very few things, and you gradually bring in more and more. And we take things out and we put things in, because we also have themes. So, you know, if we're talking about, say, a different country, which we do, we would, with our practical life exercises, we would try and bring in maybe, you know, a jug from that country, or you know, if we're doing colours, then we'll have red water or blue water, or, you know, so we change things all the time, but basically it stays the same.
So we develop, in the beginning you give them less
When they're
options
little,
and they
yes.
develop.
Yeah, if you were starting a class with new children, you wouldn't
Yes.
have a lot, no, because you wouldn't be able to show them everything. So you start with puzzles, which they're familiar with, and sort of games and
Develop,
things, and then you take those things out and bring in the things that you've shown. It's a slow process, but the thing is that once you've got a classroom that's operating and the older children know what to do, then they learn from each other. And that's why she was very much in favour of mixed ages, so that the older children help the younger ones.
I also think sometimes with young children, they don't get as overwhelmed by choice as older children or adults do.
Yeah.
When presented with many choices, they try what they can with the time they have, and they get involved, and then later maybe they go back.
Yes,
And
that's right.
when-
And they often go to the
and
same
children,
things.
And children with attention deficits.
It slows them down because we have activities such as, well, pouring the water in the beans is very calming. So we find that, you know, some children who want to rush about will be calmed down by certain of especially the practical life exercises, because they're using their hands. And that's very soothing and helps them to focus and concentrate.
Do you ever suggest any activities to particular children?
Oh yes, yeah, we do. We say, can I show you this? This is really exciting. I think you'll love this, or something like that. And then we show it to them. And if they don't want to do it, it's absolutely fine.
Okay.
It's their choice. But we just so they know how to do it. Yeah.
Because I had like this preconception that it's completely up to them, and I'm always like a bit, you know, reluctant about the idea of kind of.
Yes. No, it's freedom.
Not providing that structure. But if you say you do.
Yeah, no, we do. I mean, if you see a child who's obviously not knowing what to do, because they don't all know how to choose if they haven't had opportunity, especially when they're new, we want to show them what is available.
Yes.
And they learn a lot from each other. You know, they watch and then that's what they want to do. That's why it doesn't really work with a very small group, because you haven't got enough children to make them available to
What
copy.
would happen with children who avoid any kind of sensory experience? What would you do?
I keep showing them things.
Keep showing them.
Showing, and it's the way you introduce the material with the enthusiasm, and you know, and trying to find out what their interests are. But we had a little boy, we've got him coming up in a minute, and he was very, very knowledgeable up here, but he never used his hands. And so he would sit there with the puzzle and just bum, 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 bum. So we gave him how to clean a table, and he loved that, and he started scrubbing and using big movements and scrubbing the table. And then after that, he started choosing other things, because he suddenly realised that he could use his hands.
I think that this is what happens with our generation. The youngest ones, they're so attached to play with the computer.
I know,
They
I
actually
know.
don't
They're not much in
use
favour
other
of that.
materials.
Because they need to have all their senses stimulated, not just visually. With
Just the
computer.
fingers.
Yes, that's right. So they need to move. She was very keen on children moving. So there's a child putting something away. So the role of the teacher, and we call our teachers directresses, because we guide them. We're meant to be a facilitator and a guide. We have to observe the children and introducing them to new materials when they're ready for them. She must be a good role model. She must use a quiet voice. She must show respect to the child. She must stop other children from disturbing those who are concentrating. And the teacher can promote agency by preparing the classroom with interesting, appropriate and challenging activities. She shows the children how to do the activity and then lets them experiment on their own, watching for signs of concentration and focus. So a teacher could hinder agency by having a chaotic and noisy room, by interrupting children when they are concentrating, by using a loud voice and talking down to children, and by introducing rewards such as stars and stickers and sweets, which children don't need because they're working for themselves. So I've got a little clip of a teacher showing a child how to do something. I'd like to see it. Teacher. So this is an exercise we call stereognostic sorting, which is sorting by feel. And if you have a blindfold, you have your sense of touch is more acute. So she's showing him, he's a 2-year-old, how to sort these stones and shells. And then he has a turn. And here he is. He's quite new to this is in the afternoon with the little ones.
He used to be the noise, but the other one.
Oh, wow.
It's evaluating.
Yes. Checking it. He wants some approval.
Wow.
He remembers that she did that. And he gets two together and does that.
Well, I'm sorting a group at a time.
Oh, a group at a time. It's really fast.
Oh.
Wow.
And that's
Exactly. This is like very similar to what Debbie was showing this morning, like checking and correcting. But
yes,
here with gold, it's like it's very complex.
yes.
Because it's sorting and it's sorting without looking. And you can see, like you were saying, you can see that he's like the monitoring and control processes are engaged kind of all the time. He's evaluating and then he's changing the behavior. Like
There's a lot going on there.
And although he doesn't have a direct eye contact with his
yeah, that's the other thing.
No.
so he still feels intimacy.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
refers to her. Yes.
So I suppose that's a way of scaffolding with the teacher there.
Sorry, may I ask you something?
Yes, of course.
In that case, was it? I mean, I understood that you have all the materials for them to explore and decide what they want to do.
Yes.
But in this particular case, was it that the facilitator, the professor, or the teacher, sit by his side, or he came to her?
I'm not sure because I wasn't in the room, but maybe he took that and she said, "Can I show that to you?" Because she knew that he hadn't seen it before. So then he would say yes, and then they get a mat, and we remind them they need a mat.
So
for the
that's
floor.
basically the role of the teacher in this case, that
Yes.
she is paying attention to each
him.
of these children.
Well, yes, the others are all busy in the room round.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we try and encourage so that the rest of the room are independently involved in their own work.
So,
And
she
so
can
then you
focus
have time
on-
to focus on one-to-one. So they do get a lot of one-to-one.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
Question. How many teachers would you need in such a classroom?
We're in 3 rooms. We operate in 3 rooms, so there's 4 of us. So there's one in each room and a floater who can open the door and deal with visitors and so on.
But it was important that he chose the activity.
Yes, but if he's new, we would say, "Can I show you this?"
Just for the new ones to
Yes.
to let them know all the
Yes.
possibilities.
That's right, because otherwise they wouldn't know what there
What
was.
to choose.
That's
What
right.
to choose. But anyway, it's very important that it came from his motivation and his
Yes.
willingness to operate
If
that.
possible, yes. I mean, if she had said, "Can I show you this?" and he might have said yes, and then she said, "Would you like a turn?" If he said no, that's fine. She'd say, "Okay, well, you put it back, and if ever you want to do it, you can do it. You can go back to it as many times." Yes, just a suggestion. They often say, "No, I don't want to see that today," but they might go back another day. Or what tends to happen also is that once they've done it once, then they'll go back and they'll do it again and again, because they love repeating.
The right time
Yeah.
to go.
That's right. Yeah, so it is coming from them and not from us. Another of our practices is when to start, and we feel that 2.5 is a really good time, because children are terribly independent at 2.5. They want to do everything for themselves, and they get very absorbed with hands-on activities. And this is a traditional piece of Montessori sensorial material, which is over there, and it's called the knob cylinder block. And it is what we call self-correcting. So I'm going to show you a little film of a 2.5-year-old using the knob cylinder block to show how it is self-correcting. It's what Montessori called control of error in the material, so that they don't need to come to you and say, you know, "I've got this wrong, what do I do now?" They can see for themselves.
They can see it for themselves, but then the role of the teacher, the kindergarten teacher, would be to verbalize what they see.
Yes, well, they see for themselves, because we're encouraging independence rather than verbal.
They would see it, but if they find it difficult to say with words,
Yes.
because words are means of communicating
Yes.
ideas,
Yes.
developing thoughts, would the kindergarten teacher verbalize,
For
repeat, verbalize for them what they experience?
Possibly.
Okay.
But if they're concentrating, we don't interrupt them.
Yes.
When we show this piece of material, we might say, "I'm looking for the biggest one." So that brings in the
Yes.
language, and then they get the understanding of that. But they learn more from our actual demonstration of the material. So this little girl is 2.5. And she's been shown how to use this. She's not doing it exactly as she has been shown, but that's fine, because she's experimenting on her own, and she's learning differences of dimension. She's also looking around.
It's okay because she's feeling things.
Yeah.
She's doing it really quickly.
She's quite feverish in her activity.
This is not slow motion, right?
No, this one isn't slow motion. This is real time.
She looks.
No, she was going fast. She was going fast. Because as soon as she's finished, she wants to do it again. And that, before she's even finished.
Oh,
she's
yes,
yes.
I know. She knows she could do
But
it.
she
Yeah.
arranges things in a certain way.
Yes.
She takes
Then the second time is more rigorous.
Yes. With this piece of equipment, Montessori had it in her schools, and there was a child there who did it 44 times. And they even lifted the child up while she was still busy doing it, but she didn't notice.
I'm wondering how much praise you give to the child. How much?
Not too much.
Yeah, because they don't
They don't
look
need it.
for
No, they're satisfied with what they're doing without that.
They're basically enjoying the
Yes,
experience.
that's what she noticed, that children, when they've been concentrating, seem totally happy afterwards
Yeah.
and content.
Yeah, yeah. But it really, really makes sense, because when you really enjoy something, you feel more like willing to do it again, And as you keep doing it again, you become better
You
at
get
it.
confident.
You feel confident and you were able to move to the next stage.
Yes.
But then what happens with, for example, autistic children?
Sorry?
I think that
Autistic children?
autistic children
She used
that
these-
get obsessed with
Yes.
certain
I
action.
know.
That's where our
Yes.
role is to expand.
That's right. Yes, with I have an autistic grandson who hasn't been to a Montessori school, and it's a different approach. Although she did design these things for children with special needs. Sometimes, I think that's the end, she wants to do the next one.
She shows
Are
someone that she doesn't
they
know.
are they the same?
No, they're all different. There are 4 different ones. I brought one with me. And you can do them 2 together, 3 together, or 4 together, which shows that you start from simple to get to complicated. And then when they're really good, they can do it with a blindfold on, just by feeling. So
No,
you're
but
extending them.
If the camera wasn't there, she would take it by herself?
Yes, yes, you would, yeah. They're aware of,
Okay, yes.
yeah.
Because there is an adult that I need to ask permission.
Yeah, well, she should, I would have said, you need to put that back and then you can do the next one. That's what I was saying. Right, so that's little children, right. Yeah, so how do we also get the parents involved? Because obviously at 2.5, you've got to get the parents on side as well, because if we're encouraging children to be independent and they're doing everything for the child at home, it's going to be a conflict. So when people sign on, we invite them to an open evening and we give them a very basic understanding of Montessori, and we say, please encourage independence, get them to dress themselves as soon as they can, because at 2 they really want to, but because parents are in such a hurry these days, they say, oh, I'll do it, it'll be quicker. And so when they come to us, if the parent comes in with the little ones and starts changing their shoes, they get ticked off by me, because I say, you know, we're not in a hurry. They're going to learn to do it themselves, and all the time we're trying to encourage them to do everything for themselves. So that's so then the parents come on side and they get terribly enthusiastic and they all cry when they have to leave. So we do get the parents involved, but we don't encourage parents to come into the classroom to help us because they're not qualified and they're not trained to show the things or to understand what we're looking at. The control of error, which I put up there, is the some of Montessori materials have a built-in control of error, like the knob cylinders. That was a good example, so that you don't need to correct a child. There's another piece of equipment there called spindle boxes, which have only got the right number of spindles to go into the hole. So I've got a child doing it. That's also got a control of error built in because they can see if they haven't got enough spindles at the end. Right, so I'm going to go on to the activities. So activities which are unique to Montessori nurseries. There she is, showing a child how to do the geometric shapes. So we have practical life exercises. Montessori noticed that very young children were frequently frustrated in their attempts to do things for themselves, and what they needed was specific exercises as closely linked to real life as possible that allow them to master everyday tasks, that give him independence and control of his own life. The child is interested in the processes and will happily repeat exercises over and over again. And we notice that we've got a little boy who always comes in and starts with the same puzzle. As soon as he's done that, then he's off and trying new things. So the practical life exercises are divided into care of self, which is going to the loo, blowing your own nose, washing your own hands, getting dressed by yourself. Care of the environment, which includes sweeping and cleaning and scrubbing a table. And exercises to improve fine motor coordination and to give strength to the hands. So such things as we've got pouring and spooning there, and nuts and bolts, using a screwdriver, opening bottles and lids and matching them, and what's scrubbing the table. There we go.
I think
So
that also playing like socio dramatic games, if you have within certain areas,
such as
within the like being a doctor in
Mother and father and the child.
yes,
Role playing.
all role playing.
Yes.
That would also prepare the child for real life.
Yes, it does. We have our role play separate from this room because it could take over and distract the children who are busy concentrating. So if, say, when we do a week on pets, for instance, and we get everyone to bring in their own pet, which we show at the end of the session, and then upstairs we would have our role play, so we'd have a vet, you know, we'd have the pet animals, and then they would role play that. So that's how we would bring it in, and also outside in the garden. But if you did it in amongst all this, it could be chaos. So that's why we have, instead of pretend home corner, we have real home corner. We have a snack table which has got real glasses. They pour their own water, they spread their own butter and jam, and then they go and wash it up themselves. So,
Makes sense.
yeah, I think it makes sense. So, this is an exercise improving their hand-eye coordination. Pegs, it's a very easy one, and once they can do the pegs, then they can peg up their own pictures when they've painted them. So, I think all of these. I think I've got to go into my. Sorry about this. It's just. Right. This is a Montessori teacher showing a child how to pour beans, which is a very simple exercise for a 2-year-old. And she's 2. I don't know why it's gone like that. What's interesting about this is the other child.
She looks nice.
They always spill, that's why we're going to start with beans. Then they can pick them up. And she does it to help, because they help each other all the time. They're watching each other.
He's doing the same.
And she got it right that time without spilling. So the repetition, by repeating these activities over and over again, they're getting mastery of their own bodies and self-control. I apologise for my hopelessness with computers. This is a slow motion one. This is a child who's going to get some water and she's going to scrub the table. It's a bit of a bad film, but you can see that she's watching. The other 2 children are having a snack. So she's having a good look at them as well. So they're all moving around all the time. She's got to be careful not to spill. This little boy comes up and is actually stopped from interrupting her by the teacher in the room. because she's focused on what she's doing and she doesn't need to be interrupted by him. So he's gone off. Sorry, it's so slow. And then the sound doesn't sync with the thing, so the rest is in silence, but she's still doing it. So in this exercise they can use really big movements which young children need to do. And there's someone else with a cylinder for the water. He's focused on the life cycle of frogs. And children love this exercise and they'll do it for a very long time.
I mean, presumably you're not allowed to do that at home.
Yes,
Usually.
it's messy. Yeah, in fact, it's very messy.
You wouldn't want a 4-year-old to scrub it.
Yeah. Well, she gets so animated, which you can't see because she's not animated here. She knocks the whole lot on the floor, which happens often. And then she has to go and get them off. So this is care of the environment, looking after the. So I might just stop it there to show you what she does when she's spilt it, because then she gets them off, and then she mops it up.
She's not frustrated.
And she doesn't need to be told that either. She knows what to do. No, she didn't mind at all. She said, oh. And then she goes back to scrubbing the table again with even more vigour. And in fact, she then moves down and does this end as well, and then she dries it all. And that's probably taken her a good 15 minutes. Meanwhile, everyone else is busy, and he's doing the old whatnot. So that's enough of scrubbing the table, I think.
In some of the exercises, the meaning of what they're doing is quite clear. Like in this case, she's scrubbing the table to clean it.
Yes.
And if she drops something, she goes and gives them all to
Yes.
clean that. So that the meaning of it is very obvious. And I wonder whether you remind them, for example, when you were showing pouring the peas,
Yes.
whether that had the meaning or the sense of learning to do this with this first, because then with water it's more difficult, for example.
We don't explain to the child.
They don't.
No.
Because that's something that is often criticized about
Yes.
Montessori.
Yes.
And maybe it's just that sometimes they don't need that.
No.
They do it just because.
That's right.
Just because it's fun
Yeah.
or just
I mean-
because it's challenging.
Yes. We start with beans, and then we go on to rice, and then we go on to water. But if they go and do the water first, it doesn't matter. It's just that we would encourage them to start with the simple one, for the simple reason is they drop it,
Yeah.
and they need to repeat.
Yeah, may I add something to what you just said? I'm thinking about this in terms of adults, and sometimes the difficulties we have with technology. For instance, I remember when I had to teach it was a gentleman of some 75 years old to use the computer, and it was then that I had the chance to understand why it is so easy for a little child to learn. Is that the child just do it
Yes.
without questioning why, how it works, what if it doesn't work, whatever. While we as adults we always wonder everything. What if I break it? What if this is really very expensive? Or sometimes you want to understand, well, how is this thing actually being here in this screen? How is this moving? Children don't need that. They just do it.
That's right.
I mean, if we were to explain them, look, if you want to call me, pick up the phone because an electrical sign will go along, they will never get it. They just
No,
know
too
that
much
they just have to
talk.
take it and it will work.
Yeah.
So I think it's maybe something like that with the beans
Yes.
and
Yes, you're right. Too much chat.
Yes.
What they're looking at when you demonstrate is your hands.
Which doesn't.
And that's how they learn, by watching you.
And eventually, they really want to learn what's behind it.
Mm.
They will be able to learn
Yeah.
in any way.
And they want to do it, and they
Yeah.
want to experiment for themselves.
But you
They
see,
don't want you prattling on.
our view of self-regulation, you give a lot of credit to metacognition. And you said that not too much talking. I try to understand if it is because they are young children, but we talk
All the
even
time.
with small children.
Yes, I know.
We tell them to choose, and we discuss the choosing and how they want to order their day or things like
Yes.
that.
Sort of planning ahead.
Yeah, the planning or monitoring, evaluating and
Yes.
stuff like that. So you said it's very interesting for me to know
We don't tend to do all
the
that.
method. We
Because
don't tend to do
they're in the
metacognition.
moment, aren't they?
Mm.
What are you going to do after this? They haven't thought about it yet. They'll look and then they'll see. And when it's finished for them. It's the process rather than
We
evaluating
don't make
afterwards.
reflections too much.
Well, not too much.
What you're
Interesting.
saying is that it's that everything is at the pace of the child. It's like this is what the stage of the development that and he is required of him to do, or is expected of him to be performing like.
Yes. Yes. Well, we try and have things that children of that age and stage of development are interested in. Well, originally Montessori said don't talk at all. When you show something, don't talk. But now the Montessori colleges are saying because of this problem with language, and it's all about language now, is that yes, talk a bit, but don't distract
Not
them.
too much.
Not too much. You're not going to say, oh, this is red and this is pink, and what do you think? Because then they'll look at your mouth, and they won't be looking at what you're actually showing them to do. And the sensorial materials, which I was going to talk about now, they learn from the materials, not from you. So they learn about colours from
The
actually.
materials are designed for that.
They are.
If you were doing like math problem,
Yes.
which is abstract.
Yes.
If it was said like in an abstract way,
Yes.
you would need to talk a lot more.
Yes. That's
That would
right.
be
But
the
they have
only
concrete
way of
expression.
scaffolding, and here the way of scaffolding is basically demonstrating.
That's right. Yes.
So,
Hello.
Is there an age limit to this method of learning?
Age limit.
Yeah.
There are 3 stages really, 0 to 3, which is the assistance to infancy course, and then 3 to 6, which is the sort of I'm 2.5 to 5, if you like, because in England they go to school so early. Because when Montessori started in kindergarten was 3 to 6, which is the ideal age range. And then there's the primary, which is 6 to 12. And it does also go on 12 to 18 as well. She had her Erdkinders, which are children, teenagers, go and work on farms, farm school, and yet they grow their own vegetables and then the tractors and all that sort of thing. So they're putting it into practice then.
So why is there a difference between this method and scaffolding?
Sorry?
Is there a difference between Montessori learning and scaffolding? Scaffolding.
Scaffolding.
Yeah.
We sort of scaffold, I suppose, but the materials are doing the scaffolding for them.
just back to the question of language, because I think it's a really interesting one. If the Montessori idea, does go up through those ages, then there must be a view about where new vocabulary comes
Oh,
from.
definitely. Oh, yes. Well, and you have lots of chat with the older children, lots. She wanted to isolate things so that it's clear for the child. So, for instance, with a pink tower, you'd say this is little and this is big.
Yeah.
Can you show me which is the little one, which is the big one? And you would sort of limit what you say so that they can understand.
Yeah.
But obviously, when they're older, there's a lot of chat, and we have a lot of the children are talking all the time. It's not, we're not working in silence.
No.
Once he finishes building this tower,
Yes.
do you praise him?
No.
No.
I think you skipped a slide that has the video of that.
The pink tower?
I think so.
I think it's coming in now.
Or
Yes.
is it coming after?
Yes. I'll show you a child doing the pink tower. Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to explain a bit about the sensorial materials. They're designed to educate the eye through the activity of the hand. So children learn through their senses, and Montessori designed interesting materials which the children are drawn to experiment with. So she took each of the senses and developed materials that isolated certain aspects, for example, size, texture, colour, smell, sound. The material provokes activity, and it's the movement that helps the child to concentrate. So this child here is doing the brown stair, which is there, which they learn about differences in width. So you mix it all up on the mat and show them how to put it in order, then you mix it up and then they have to put it into order. So that's in a way a diagnostic for the teacher. She can see if the child can do it or not without having to say anything. The same with the pink towel. And those two are grading. It's called colour box 3. They're grading colours from lightest to darkest, which is refining their sense of colour. I'll just show you a couple of other sensorial clips, which was the pink tower is a traditional piece. There. So here's a little boy. He's probably nearly 4, I suppose. There are 2.5-year-olds who are very interested in this one, but he's a bit older, because they go back to it. And so I could tell that he knows how to do this, and then the next step would be to show him how to do it with the brown stair. So they go together. They're made in. So they fit together beautifully, and we make very tall towers that go up to the ceiling and use a ladder. And he's very happy about it. And then another of the sensorial activities, this is a group of children matching the feel of fabrics. So you can do it with one child using a blindfold, but you can also do it, she's putting the pair behind her, so she's feeling it and not looking. She's got to find which is the same on the mat. She's very pleased that she's found the right one.
The carpets are chosen by
They-
them.
yeah,
It's
they-
a routine.
Yes, they all work on a mat.
They mark
The mark work, yeah, that's right. And
He's very excited too.
sorry, it went a bit sideways after that. So we encourage them to work together as well as working on their own. And they just have to say, can I work with you? And if the other child says no, then that's fine. They can often find something else. Right, so they do that.
Do you have rules that with this game only 2 children can play, or?
No, if you get, a whole group, you might say, well,
Okay.
it might be getting a bit noisy. But some activities are more conducive to group work, and some are more conducive to
But
individual work.
the number of children is not limited.
No,
Okay.
no. Only if they're causing disruption and upsetting other children in the room. So the freedom is always limited by what's going on in the room. And then finally, the academic materials, which include maths, language, geography, history, science. A lot of the materials are concrete materials to illustrate abstract concepts, like we were saying about maths. So I'm going to go straight into this and show the spindle boxes, which is over there. And this child, she's 4, and she's counting the spindles. And it's hard to hold a lot of these. So.
Do you accept children who are older?
We prefer to start them young, because otherwise you miss their sensitive periods for certain things. Sometimes we do, but on the whole it's better if they start young. See, she found her own mistake without anyone telling her that she'd done it wrong. So next time she might remember to do it right, but we don't need to show her again because she found out for herself.
Again, children with special needs would need
Yes.
some more guidance.
Yes, they would. Yeah, we do it with them. I mean, they probably wouldn't choose that piece of work anyway. They do something easier. If it was a special needs child, we might reduce some of the numbers in the pink tower, for instance, and just have half of them, you know, to make things slightly easier.
So what you would do is let him experience and then mediate.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We haven't got any special needs children at the moment, but we have had children with Down syndrome who love the knob cylinder blocks. I want to repeat that over and over again. And now I've got globes and maps. This is part of our cultural materials, and this is a map of England. I brought the map of the world here, but it's just a puzzle. And she is 3. She has a lot of trouble with waves. And Northern Ireland. But what's good is that she will persevere without asking anyone to help her.
Would that be nice?
She did it. So that was quite good. And then she'll put it back. And then this is what we call the metal incense, which is a preparation for writing. She devised these metal shapes, geometric shapes, which they could draw inside and do patterns. But we also give them the opportunity to what we call push pins. So they get a pin and they prick all the way around, as you'll see, on the line, which is good for their hand-eye coordination. To make sure it fits. And I've got the piece of work here. This is what she did. I stole it. But I'll pass it round because you can see she got it all on the line and she wrote her name in the middle. This takes quite a long time.
Especially this time.
I remember doing that with letters, as they were encouraged to fill the
Yeah.
project with that.
Yeah, we do it with shapes, we can do it with map bits from the map, and all sorts of things. They enjoy that a lot. And another piece of academic work was the sandpaper letters, which are Montessori invented sandpaper letters. So they feel the shape and then they try and write it in the sand. So that was actually an A. And this is the R. And then they rub it out. Which
That's where it comes from.
rather than getting them to write straight away, we encourage them to do it on the sand first. I think that might be all slips. Oh, I know, one more. Classification, which is a preparation for science. We do a lot of classification activities, and he is sorting magnetic and not magnetic. If I wasn't standing there with the camera, he wouldn't be looking up.
What I'm always concerned when I go and observe kindergartens is that children are very dependent on their dogs. They're
That's what we're
dependent
trying
for
to avoid.
appraisals,
Yes.
and here is just doing it for himself. Not for
Yes. Well, that's what we're trying to encourage. So in a Montessori classroom, everything is reality-based. We bring the world into the classroom. We do a lot of geography, and I'll show you some of these things in now. So I thought I might show how we show a child something. And then it would be really nice if you could come and have a look at the things, because I brought them a long way. So maybe I'll just stop this now. And so we work on a mat on the floor. So I would say to the child, I'm going to show you, or would you like to see the pink tower? This is how you hold the mat. Right. Right. Okay, now this is how you unroll the mat. So we show them everything. So, the mat is for the work. We walk round the mats. Am I walking on the mat? No, thank you. Right, now I'm going to choose the pink tower. So I would say, would you like me to show you this? Okay, yes. Right, so it involves an awful lot of movement, which is what Montessori was very keen on. Children don't like sitting still. They want to move all the time. And it's the movement that's helping them to concentrate.
And while you're doing that,
They're watching. They're watching. They do watch. Yeah. Sometimes I say, you can help me if you like. Could you bring the next one? But the whole thing is with this is that they're getting a sensorial impression through their hands that this is getting bigger. And often they'll say, oh, it's getting bigger. I say, yes. And because you're holding it like this, when it gets to the big one, obviously their little hands can't do it like that. But that's how I show it. And maybe with this one, this because it's big. Actually, let me see. Right. So then you say, would you like to sit here? So because I'm right-handed, I want them to see what I'm doing. And if I was left-handed, they wouldn't see what I was doing with my hands. So the whole thing is that they need to see what you're doing with your hands. And I would probably say, I'm looking for the biggest one. And you sort of, you emphasize and exaggerate what you're actually doing so that they can see. And now I'm going to take it down, and then it's your turn. So then take it down in the same way. And then,
That's really good because I would be tempted to just knock it over.
of course, yes. No, they never knock over the big tower. So the purpose of this is to show differences in dimension. And a lot of people say, well, why don't you let them make a garage out of it? So I would say, well, it has a purpose, this material. And if you want to make a garage, we've got big blocks, you know, that you can make a garage with pleasure. But certainly not with this. I wouldn't say it like that, obviously. So then they do it. And then an extension would be getting these cards. So then they could match them to the cards. So then that's bringing in a bit of maths as well, number recognition as they get bigger. And then when they're really good at it, then we could do it with the brown stair as well, which they really enjoy. So there's various extensions one can do. And with the brown stair we carry it like this. So they get the impression in their hands. And so I could be here all day showing you these things. Because we want them to do lots and lots of journeys.
Yes. I'm not.
I'm not. Yes. Okay. So now I would only show it with both once they've done both separately. Right. So now they know how to do the brown stair, hopefully. So we're going to do them. First of all, make the stair. That's right. This is used every day. You can see that it's got quite a lot bashed in it. It's 20 years. But I still, we look after that one.
Where do you get this material?
Well, the Montessori companies, Nienhaus was the one that Mario Montessori was involved with, her son. She had a son, illegitimate son. She had an affair with her professor at the university. And in those days, she wasn't allowed to say it was her son, and no one ever knew. Until I think, I'm quite sure it went after she died. But she always called him her nephew. But it was her son, who was brought up by someone else in the early years, and then they got together, and he actually helped her with all her work, and also wrote books. So these, as you can see, they match perfectly, which is very interesting for children. Not that one. And then there's various. I wouldn't show them this quickly. I'm just showing you the sort of things that you can do with them. So then you can actually put them like this. This is what we call a wall, so that they can do it like that, and then once you've got them all up, they can do this as two children together, like doing this one. And then at the end you say, oh, what do you think would happen if I took that one out? And then say, oh, it's going to fall over, isn't it? This is a bit of a chat for you. What do you think would happen? And so then you say, okay, well, let's try. You take this out and let's see what happens. I'm totally amazed that it doesn't fall over. And then you can take them out like that. And then they can also build them up so that they go really high, and we have a ladder so that in the end we have to help them, because even with a ladder they can't reach. So that's a piece of sensorial material. What I thought I could do, because I'm not quite sure how the time is we could I want to put on some slides. Yeah. And then you can come and look at the material. I'll just put them on while we're...
Yeah, we have some more than 20 minutes.
Have we? Oh, that's good. How does this work? Oh, sorry. Yeah. So then you can see, because we're also involved in Nicaragua, as she said, and we have been the parents in my school have raised money to give training to Nicaraguan teachers. And there are a few pictures here of the children doing very similar things to what our children do. And we have a link. And their teachers come over to work in my school, and I've been over there to work in their schools a couple of times. Because Bristol is twinned with a village in Nicaragua, which is why we got involved.
Where do your teachers come from? Do they come already trained?
I've got, they're not all trained, no. I train them on the spot. I have had teachers from other countries because it's international. So I've had an Argentinian working for me who was trained in America. But every training school is slightly different. But it is important that the teachers understand what it's all about, obviously. Now that's in Nicaragua.
Can we help?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I thought you might like to get up at this point and come and look at some of the things. But you can see that they're also concentrating over there. And Montessori is not just for yummy mummy babies. It works extremely well in deprived areas. And children want to do these things from whatever culture they are. And there we are building up the brown stair. And here are our children. Focusing on what they're doing. And all being independent. That is controlled. This is very easy exercise. You just balance marbles on top of straws.
Wow.
It requires an awful lot of steady hand. This is the baster. The children love to transfer, so they're transferring water. That's opening bottles and spoons, pouring, lots of pouring. I'll just put this away and then I can talk to you from the other side of the table to tell you what it is. Thank you. This is very kind of you. That is for you, transferring using your mouth. By sucking up with a straw. So you take one of these, which is very upward, and try and move that into there using a straw. We've invented a lot of these activities with this. Thank you. I'll get the other side. Yeah, you have to roll the mat properly. So this is some of the cultural material. And this is things from Europe. So because children are interested in little objects, we have an atlas. So when we're on the Europe page, it's red, we use Europe thread. So it's coming from little objects that they like to put on that. So that we're used to Norway. They all know that the up and down. So when people go on holiday, they bring us little things which they are fascinated by.
Basically, the only expensive part of this was basically that the teachers had to be trained. And that's the only expensive part about it.
We're always on the
Everything else.
This is to show timeline of the task. They have to put it in the right order so that they've got to see it. Yeah, this the mother was saying these, the children have to put them in the right order. That's a language. They have to read it and do what it says.